Welcome to everyone. Please keep yourselves muted, and when you want to ask a question, just raise your hand. You can be unmuted at that stage. So welcome back to those of you who were with us last month in this relatively new, as in it's only happened once, Papillon tea idea. It is not about training specifically. This isn't a training course. There won't be slides. There won't be a formal presentation, but we will stay with a specific topic. Last time we discussed the whole and very vital issue of nonprofits in our country cooperating and collaborating. Next month, I think it's the, I wrote it down somewhere. I'll hold you up. So, sorry, I haven't got it handy. But next month, I think it's the 13th of June, but we're going to be. Sorry, guys, please keep muted. Please, guys, please keep muted. Please mute. We're going to be discussing fundraising from the UK. So the point is discussing, sharing. This isn't the whole idea here is networking. What made me think of it is while we are all embracing, and it's wonderful, the use of online. There are not many good things that came from COVID, but I think we all learned rather rapidly that we didn't have to go to the office every day, if at all. And we can do things online. We can be better connected. But one does lose an element of that wonderful experience being at a live conference, live training session, where I always maintain that the best part of the day is someone you meet in the queue waiting for lunch or something. So the idea is just to network in the truest sense of the word, to learn from each other, to share, but to focus on a specific topic, and in this case, the dreaded lurgy of commission-based fundraising. I don't know of an issue in our sector that causes quite as much emotion, I think is the word I'm looking for. Why do some or many nonprofits want or insist upon, or certainly ask fundraisers or potential fundraisers to work for them if they would work on a commission basis? If you ask them from the nonprofit side, there are generally two points I hear from them, and that is firstly, oh, well, we can't afford a fundraiser. And secondly, it's something along the lines of, and they've got this so wrong, but nevertheless, it's where that's coming from, so that's why I'm sharing it. Secondly, it is along the lines of, oh, if the person has the carrot of more money, they'll work harder. Well, I'm afraid I'd like to believe that if nothing else emerges from today, we'll find that certainly that fundraisers will work harder if there's a commission carrot, certainly won't apply. I have raised a vast amount of money. For some reason, I think it was sheer excitement when I raised my first money ever. I started keeping tabs, and 35 years later, I've raised over 2 billion rand for South African nonprofits. And I'm far more proud of the fact I've never creamed off 1 single cent in commission than I am of how much I happen to have raised. But so that I'm against the practice. It is not, unfortunately, outlawed in the country. I wish it was, quite honestly. I do have some information, and if needs be, I've got it very handy. I can literally read a paragraph or two from what our wonderful Ricardo Weingart, as far as I'm concerned, the best nonprofit lawyer in our country, said to me on this topic. Basically, it's around the remuneration needs to be fair, and if the fundraiser, as it were, creams off too much, that is considered unfair, unreasonable. Sorry, reasonable was his word, and therefore illegal. But it would be useful to have your, as in, I wish we had a nice English word for yellow, but you all know what I mean, everyone's input. I do really suggest those of you who haven't read Shamima Jihad's wonderful article that she wrote for #NPO, the website, the newsletter. Please, and if you're not subscribing to hashtag NPO, you really should. It's become the go-to place in our country for news, jobs, job adverts, and just what's happening in the country. So have a look at the article that Shamima wrote a while ago. It's superb. And she did it from her perspective of seeing pretty high, supposedly high-paying fundraising jobs being advertised. And she investigated some of these for the article and found that they, whilst they didn't say so in the adverts, they were all commission-based. So this isn't just about me. Melanie, could I ask you, because I know you and I have discussed this topic ad infinitum, I know you've even written bits about and things about it. It'd be great if you could come in and just share where you're coming from. And then everybody else, this is your time, hey? This is questions, sharing, good, bad, ugly. You may be entirely pro-commission. This is discussion and networking time. Melanie.
Thanks, Joel. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to be here. And I see lots of familiar names and I see some not so familiar names. So if I don't know you, it's lovely to meet you. Yeah, so it is a very thorny issue. And Joel, as you so rightly said, organizations that are struggling for funding, that maybe are startups or have found themselves in a bit of a bad situation, it does seem like a good solution at the time. My biggest problem with it is a selfish one. As a fundraiser, I know that a good relationship with a donor takes a long time to cultivate. And I know when I start working with a new client as a consultant, I warn them that it takes about 2 years to get any real kind of traction as a fundraiser. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I can't afford to work for free for 2 years. And so from my perspective, I've got to know that I've got the resources to support myself for 24 months, realistically, before funding starts to flow for an organization. So that is a major issue for me. The other problem that I have is, and I love what Ricardo was saying about fairness, my own sense of fairness comes into play because I know that fundraising is a team sport. It doesn't happen without a well-designed program. It doesn't happen without a well-designed M&E system. It doesn't happen without a wonderful finance person who can put the numbers in place for me, because I hate numbers and I'll write you stories about numbers, but for heaven's sake, don't leave me in charge of them. They don't get commission. Why? It just seems unfair to me, because the reality is the payoff, the trade-off for the delayed income is that obviously you would want to be making more. By that same token, one of my clients, I've just brought them in 3.9 million Rand from the lotteries. Now, if I had a 10% commission, which is not an unreasonable amount, how much would they have to give me? Was what I did worth that? No. So why would they pay me a commission on that? A day's pay for a day's work is far more practical to me.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, it actually reminds me of a situation I had a few years ago, and I will obviously categorically not mention the name of the organization. But being Cape Town based, I got this urgent phone call from a Johannesburg a fundraiser whom I did know a little in Johannesburg, and she said, we need to urgently book some consulting time with you, but we want you in Johannesburg. And how quickly can you come? As in literally, can you be on a plane tomorrow type of thing? And I said to her, yes, I could probably get there in about 2 days, but even if I can email to book an hour's consulting time, let alone to go to Joburg for a full day, that's writing off a day, I would charge a client for a whole day, plus flights, just Uber, taxi, whatever, it's costs. But even if I get an email to say, could they book an hour's consulting, I always ask what it's about, because sometimes I'm not the right person. Happened to me just the other day. I wasn't the right person. The issue they were asking was far more legal, so I passed them on to Ricardo. It could just be something that's not necessarily my field, and I know people like Melanie, and I can mail, and I kind of know who to pass things on to. Or if I can answer the question in a paragraph or two, well, I don't even obviously charge them, and that's it. So no, it's complicated. We need you here. So the bottom line is, yes, about 2 days later, I was on the 6 a.m. flight. You know what that means. I won't tell you what time you have to get up to do that. And arrived at their offices in Joburg, and I was met by the person who had contacted me, the fundraiser, who said that she was going to brief me on the issue, and in half an hour, her CEO would be joining us. Well, within about 4.5 minutes, I said to her, you shouldn't have flown me up. You should have told me what this is about. And what was it about? Melanie, you just made me think of it. This lady was on a pretty low, 5,000 Rand or something, retainer, and quite a substantial, I think 20% or something. Can't remember the exact details, but on a very low retainer and on a quite steep commission. And she had brought in, this was earlier in the lotteries days when they didn't cap things, and she brought in something like her first lottery success was in the 18 million Rand league. So obviously there was going to be a huge chunk of money that, according to her contract, because she was an employee, that was interesting, Mel. She was full-time. She's still there, interestingly. She's full-time employee, so she had an employment contract. So I said to her, you know, if you had told me on the phone, as I asked, what this was going to be about, I would have told you, wouldn't have cost you a cent of my time, and you certainly wouldn't have had to pay me for a whole day and fly me to Joburg. I said, you don't need a fundraising consultant, you need a labor lawyer. This is a legal issue. What's the whole fuss about? The lottery contract with a beneficiary non-organization, as I'm sure most of you know, absolutely precludes any commission coming off their donation. So I said, you need, this is a contract issue. It's a labor contract issue. You do not need a fundraising consultant. Anyway, I was cross, so I did charge them for the whole day because they wasted my time. Bottom line, I heard later, because of course I was curious, I asked her. They did get a lawyer. The lawyer said that the organization was contractually bound to pay her. They hadn't thought of putting any upper cap. In other words, as Ricardo was saying, they blew the whole concept of reasonable. And so they did pay her this money, and could show, because naturally the lottery wants total transparency, and they could show or claimed, or could, let's be kind and say, could show that it came out of their own money. But I found the whole thing just so deeply concerning. Well, so yeah, it is a problem. We've got a question here. Could you suggest other ways of being remunerated if the NPO is still very young and the budget is tight? I'm going to come back to that question if you don't mind. I did ask, is Jackie here from Cheshire Homes? Sorry, I can't see everybody. I did ask Jackie if she was able to weigh in.
Hi, I am
Hi,
here.
Jackie.
Sorry.
Yes, just as I said, I do this. I'm afraid I'm open about it. I do ask a couple of people ahead of time to prepare some thoughts. We will come back to that question, but Jackie, please. And I didn't even ask Jackie if she's pro or anti. So that's all the transparency.
Okay. Well, yeah. So I actually was really interested to see that this talk was coming up because it's something that's coming up in our organization. We have 16 Cheshire Homes throughout South Africa, but we all work independently of each other. So, you know, each organization can do things however they want to. And in fact, Anne Harding, where I am in Randburg, is the only one with a full-time fundraiser, which is myself. And I don't know if anybody else is in the adult disability arena, but it is extremely hard to get funding for adult disability. I mean, they're just not that cute. So, you know, I really do battle. And also we have the issue that most of our residents are white, so we can't help with BEE and all those sort of things. So
losing your sound, Jackie. Is it just me? Jackie, I've lost your sound. Mel, can you hear?
No, I think we've lost Jackie's.
Jackie, I can see Jackie's here. Jackie, if you can hear us, Mel, maybe just type in that we've lost Jackie's sound. While we're trying to get you back, I'm just going to ask, is Irene? Yes, I think Irene's here. Irene de Bot from Institute for the Deaf. There you are, Irene. I can see you. Please, would you, There you are. Hi, Irene. I just also I asked you and Jackie and Mel if you could just have some thoughts to get us going, because it's good to as it were stir things up. I haven't forgotten the question that we had about other ways of remunerating fundraisers. But yes, Irene, just thoughts, please, and thanks for being prepared to help us get the chats going.
Yes, I must say I was very glad I see the topic, because I'm now 34 years in the NPO world, and I always wonder about commission-based fundraising. So, but I can share my journey, because sometimes you are in positions that you thought, oh, you need extra people in KwaZulu-Natal, you need people in Johannesburg area, and thought, oh, perhaps if you got the right person there that could help you to bring in individual donors, perhaps that is the way. But every time it was always this feeling inside me that don't feel right. And I will not say, when I think about it, I do not have the guts to go through with it. I don't have the knowledge and what is the regulations regarding community-based fundraising. So I think it was the lack of knowledge. But at some years ago, when I shared it with a team of mine, it was also, I can feel it in the team that if we get a person on board to run a project for us, a big project, some of the staff also feel that, but they is also putting time into that project. So who is getting the commission? So it was all that all that reaction. So then I've wondered about that. And the other thing that was popping always in my mind is, when a donor know about it, would he think it is a good decision? Will we not be able to lose that donor if here there is commission involved?
Yeah, Irene, thank you. Essentially, thank you for everything you're saying. Your instinct is right. Yes, you ask. Let me put it this way, and I'd love Mel's and Mel's opinions too. Anyone else who's sort of involved more in a consulting level. I have yet to meet the donor that approves of commission. Let's put it that way. I cannot say that not a single donor out there in the world approves of commission, but I have yet to meet one that approves of commission. And I have seen many contracts around, MOUs, whatever donors give, and that categorically states that no fundraiser will receive. As I mentioned in the lottery example earlier, they absolutely don't. I've actually literally got the notes in front of me, what Ricardo said. Fascinatingly, while he was talking about the fact that the running of nonprofits sort of falls under, while we have the NPO Act, it doesn't touch on this. I know there's constant talk of upgrading the Act, but it falls under common law. But interestingly, Ricardo tells us that PBO legislation is far stricter on this whole topic. So, let's kind of watch this space. You raised a really useful thought for me, Irene. That's why I like this is a networking, and we need to chat about these things. The one time you said a big project, so that's not necessarily what you were saying, but it just sparked this for me. One of the few times that I know from being around for a long time is that it's often okay to pay a commission to someone who is, and these are generally external people, but it can be okay to pay someone to organize an event for you. It's something has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And any good event organizer will have a budget up front, have all the expenses, endeavor to find sponsorship, all that kind of thing, do an estimate of income, even, and not 100% ticket sales, but whatever it is, sort of calculate the amount of work time they think it might take them, and it's important this stuff is all dealt with upfront, and it might be even 20% of the profit, not the total income, of course, the profits once the expenses are removed. And I have seen some quite I think they're good. Event organizing contracts that people have shown me because they've felt a bit uncomfortable about them, where there'd be 10, 15, even up to 20%, because event organizing is hard. And often if it's outsourced, it's often a team that has to work on it. So income has to be shared. But I have seen quite generous, I've even seen up to 25, even 30% on sponsorship raised directly to offset the expenses or that sort of thing. But it's one of the few examples, and I'd love your input, Mel, where you can hive off an event. It's standalone, generally outsourced, not necessarily staff. And that's one example that can be okay. Mel, what do you think?
Jill, you're absolutely right. And of course, the fact that that's also sponsorship funding and not CSI funding makes it a different thing. The other thing I was thinking of is ticket sellers. So if you're doing a win a car or something like that, where, you know, it might be 10 Rand for the ticket and the ticket seller gets R1. Again, it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's not really something that a Section 18A would be issued against. So I think you have a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to sponsorship.
Yes, thank you. And even as you're saying, the ticket sale, when because something is that is more measurable, these one-off type things, there are wonderful things organizations do with around their income generating side. You know, they might actually have people out selling things for them, earning a commission. But because it's contained, as I can't think of a better word than beginning, middle, and end. It's contained. You sell this book for us. Book's 500 Rand, you get 50 Rand for each book you sell, or something like that. I mean, that's different. So there are exceptions.
And I think also the fact that you can't issue a Section 18A against it.
Well, exactly.
Getting something.
I thank you. I didn't want to, because I encouraged the chats, and I didn't want to miss this one that came a bit earlier. I'm going to raise it, and please, anybody, guys, this isn't just the few people I asked to help get this going. Please, this is our discussion time. Everybody, please, could you suggest other ways for being remunerated if the NP is still very young, if the organization is very young and the budget is tight? Well, and again, Mel, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump on you, but Mel, whoever else is here, please come in. You know, let's go right back. Every nonprofit in the world will have had its roots somewhere. Generally, it's a group of concerned citizens seeing an issue that they cared so deeply about that they become this concerned group who knows somebody must do something, and they become those somebodies, if you know what I mean. And that's where we all, and because I have been part of startup organizations. I am part of one right now. And if I look at my working day, I'm probably spending 45% of certainly my working week entirely voluntarily, because I am a startup trustee. So the issue, it really is the sweat equity of the startup team. People whose passion and concern about a cause that fires them out so much to address. It's a kind of given that they should be doing this either at no charge or incredibly low cost, and whatever it might be, the admin, the developing of training materials or whatever it might be, and also the fundraising. So that's a kind of given. So my point, and what I'm getting to, and sorry if I'm waffling, when you're saying a young, quite new organization with the budget is tight, I could replace that by saying a 40, 50, 60-year-old organization is having a tough financial time. I don't even necessarily differentiate by that. But my point is, why should the fundraiser be the one who is singled out? What about the driver, the secretary, the HR person? Why must the fundraiser be singled out and their remuneration in some way hampered just because they're the fundraiser? So no, there are numerous others. So it's not different ways to pay a fundraiser, in my opinion. The one thing, and I know most of you have heard me bleat on about this a lot, because I spend my time between South Africa and the UK, and I see what they do in the UK. We in South Africa are still fixated with everybody's got to work full time. Or maybe there's this very gold thing that we treat as gold, a half-day job. Working moms might want a half-day job. Well, hey, these days we work from home when we can, as many of us. What about flexi time? What about having somebody 15 hours a week? We could have less of someone's time. That's just a thought. Mel?
Jill, I'd
Yes.
love to respond because Lizzie's actually raised something that I was going to raise, but I would say, Lizzie, I wouldn't look at a percentage. One of the things that I've heard being used locally and more, I think, in the US than Europe and the UK. And I was actually in a strategic planning session with the National Council of quite a well-known NPO yesterday, and we were talking about this very thing. For me, there is a kind of a way around it in the form of a performance bonus. If you reach a target, or if you go X amount over target. But Lizzie, your question around a 1% bonus. Okay, first of all, I want to know what you meant by 1%, whether you mean 1% of their salary amount or 1% of what was raised. I would avoid percent entirely. If they reach their target, they get a bonus with a value of X. If they exceed their target by, and here I will allow a percentage, by 10% or 20% or 30% or whatever you agree on, a fixed amount bonus would apply. But to be honest, I mean, I had to confess, I have been a fundraiser for more than 2 decades. I've never worked harder because I thought I was going to get a bonus out of it. I give the best I can give on every day. It's just the way I'm wired. And I think if you spoke to most fundraisers, we aren't motivated by money. Heck, I hope we aren't, because then we must spend our lives being disappointed. But we're not motivated by money. We're motivated by getting the job done, by getting the money in, by getting the win. For me, there's more adrenaline and endorphins and joy that comes out of a grant agreement than anything else. Mm-hmm. So while I think that you can get around it by doing something like that, where it's not based on a percentage of anything, I think it's a way around it. It's a little bit gray, but it's doable. But even then, I would argue that shouldn't motivate a good fundraiser.
Thanks for that, Mel. I'm going to make a point, because I do appreciate the input of looking at questions in the. I don't want to let anything happen in the chat we don't address. So I'm going back, as it were, to one that says, this is a bit concerning. What if the fundraiser brings in the funds, gets paid, but the NPO fails to spend the funds? Well, that's not the fundraiser's problem. And I'm not sure who asked this question. Deborah. The reason Deborah, do I read into this? What if the fundraiser brings in the funds, is paid a commission, and the NPO fails to spend the funds? If that's what you mean, or no commission, because you could argue the same, that if the fundraiser is merely on a salary, however big or small, or for that matter, purely volunteer, that's not the fundraiser's problem. That is a serious issue between the nonprofit and the donor, and somewhere between ethically and legally, that nonprofit would be bound to refund that money, or ask very nicely for it to be rolled over to the next year or something. But my instinct is that's out of the realm of the fundraiser's role. The fundraiser may be the person who is the face of the organization, may have to help to be involved in the solution. But it just shows you yet another issue. Sorry, I think that's Jackie's lost connection. Right, Lizzie has said, sorry, Mel, is this one you answered? Oh yeah, that you've responded to that, sorry. Okay, I thought of an issue the other day, again, something that I had, like Mel, these things pop up often when people are asking me things. Here's a nightmare one that I saw. It didn't exactly get lawyers involved, but it almost did. There was a woman who was a fundraiser. I can't remember whether she was also that example of a very low retainer and a commission, or only commission, but there was definitely a commission involved. And she was with the organization 6 or 7 years. Because the other thing, the whole other issue, and Mel touched on it in the beginning, fundraising is not quick. I was appalled the other day to hear that someone has recently been appointed in a new job and told they need to bring in new. You know, this is the thing about, we want to bring in R1 million new money, which means that means you've got to bring in new donors, and we want to see R1 million in the first year, whatever it is. But in this particular case, the lady had been there for about 6 years. And she had got one of those wonderful things that I call gold of a multi-year grant. She'd found a donor, a European donor, who'd committed substantial money for 3 years. She left around about the beginning of year 2. So my question is, considering this deeply unhealthy situation of commission, who would get the money, the commission, for year 2, year 3? Should a portion still go to the lady who had left? What about the new person who had to do very little else other than gather some information to send reports? I see it as a minefield. So, you know, I mean, as I've said from the get-go, and I think anybody who's heard me write and talk about this, it's absolutely a no-no. But don't let's restrict it just to a few of us. Anybody else want to come in with any thoughts, any ideas, any questions, anything that you might want to share where you've seen a model that has worked? Anybody? Let me throw open this question that did come up earlier. Because I'm interested in, you know, the question was, okay, if this particular question was the organization is young and doesn't have a lot of money, and how do they pay their fundraiser? I then added, well, you know, could you just as readily, because these are the organizations I see make contact with me about help, we're running out of money. So if an organization, new, established, whatever, is short of funds, what ideas for them to remunerate, why do I struggle with that word, to pay the fundraising personnel team? Any ideas from anybody? What are you doing? Anything? I mean, I like Mel's suggestion, and what I was talking about is the example of the person who got this vast lottery grant and so on. Those are almost presupposing there are there's good success. But in other cases, what experience have any of you had in some of the places you've worked or volunteered? Doesn't automatically mean that if you give us a tip or idea or thought that it applies to your current situation or your current organization. But what do we do as a community of fundraisers in a country struggling? Focus at the moment is the elections, the economy, the lack of electricity. I hardly need to rattle off all the issues that we're facing. Too many nonprofits is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the biggest issues we've got. Just too many. The competition is huge. I think, Mel, you were telling me the other day that the latest figure on NPO certificates alone, that excludes faith-based entities, schools, universities, clubs, or any other grouping like a CBO that doesn't have an NPO registration, that already is over 300,000. So suggestions and thoughts and ideas on paying our fundraisers. Anybody? Come on, guys, isn't it
So,
crazy?
I think
Mel, yes, please.
you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, this is the problem. For me, I absolutely think that job share, part-time, definitely that is one solution for me. As you know, having been a consultant for some time as well, consultants have a little bit of a mixed reputation in the space, but I think their value is starting to come through in that the cost you're paying is the sort of baseline cost to get the job done, which it's not to say that I'm expecting everybody to run off and become consultants. It doesn't, you know, some people it's just not possible. But I think that flexibility and that level of trust that you don't have to have the person sitting under your nose every day to know that they're doing a good job, I think is something that needs to permeate down and into the sector, and not just fundraisers. You know, I'm talking all support staff to the nonprofit sector, whether it's the person doing your social media, your website, whatever it might be. They don't have to be staff. And I think that's something, or they don't have to be full-time. They don't have to be under your nose 5 days a week. And that's something that I think the sector needs to learn to embrace. My big fear when I became a consultant, gosh, Joel, what was that, 13 years ago? was that I wouldn't have the discipline if there wasn't somebody breathing down my neck. And I discovered that I am more consistent and I work harder as a consultant than I did as an employee. Very glad that none of my former employers are on this call, but damn, we're recording it. But that was the reality, is I'm so committed to doing the best that I can because I am a consultant and all I have is my reputation. I think that I'm a better consultant than I ever was an employee. So, and I think South Africans are also afraid of consulting because there is an element of risk. Even going part-time, there's an element of risk. You're not there all the time. They don't notice you. What if they don't notice you? Then when time comes to get rid of people, you're the first person they'll get rid of because you don't have the same relationship. And I don't think that's the case at all.
That's fascinating. Thank you, Mel. That's fascinating. Just for clarity, because it hasn't come up yet in this discussion, we use this term consultant to mean two different things. We use the term consultant it's just in the sector and largely in the country. In fact, it's globally. The term fundraising consultant is used to mean two things. It can either mean an outsourced fundraiser, which is very much what Mel's referring to, or it could be what I do most of my time, and that is consult on fundraising, as in advise. And we just use that term very interchangeably. And I know you do both, Mel. You undertake fundraising and you also charge for your advice. So we're using the term kind of broadly. But yes, you're right. So yeah, thank you for that. I thought of, if we're trying to help with ideas, here's a thought, and I'm taking it from, I don't have an answer. The short answer is I don't have an answer to how to remunerate. Why do I struggle with that word? Fundraisers, because they are staff members, they should be paid. So, I mean, are you going to have a whole different creative way of remunerating the, bookkeeper, the driver, the secretary? No. So I'm going to go down that road. But I think we need to be more creative. For instance, our unemployment figures in the country are the thing of nightmares. One aspect, of course, is unskilled and unemployed people. However, don't negate, and it's a serious issue, qualified people, capable people, people who literally have university degrees who cannot find jobs. And the catch-22 there is that despite a certificate from a college, it could be a good matric, it could be literally a university, which people believed, their families who sweated to get them there, believed that as soon as they have that piece of paper, they'll just walk into jobs. The problem is that, yes, a qualification is useful. It's, to me, a university degree means the priority for me when I meet someone who has a university degree is they showed the tenacity to complete whatever it was, the studies, the assignment, whatever they had to do. That's what a degree means to me. Unless, of course, I would like to know that a doctor I go to does actually have studied medicine. I just see that somebody with a degree has shown the tenacity. I mean, if I just think of my own two children, they both have master's level degrees and neither of them are working at all in the field that they studied for. But one of them, not only, but one of the reasons people cannot find jobs is they have no experience. Now, I feel that we do not do enough with volunteers. And by volunteer, I don't mean that someone should offer their time 40 hours a week free. But volunteering can be part-time. It could be a day and a half, 2 days a week or something. If a priority for somebody is to gain experience, I'm speaking about newly qualified people who cannot find jobs. It could be people, mostly women, who took time out, but this applies to men as well. They can be the stay-at-home dad, people who took time out to raise children when they were young, needing to get back into the workplace. It can be anybody wanting to gain some experience. We should be bringing them in, even if entirely as volunteers or some very nominal stipend, to gain experience. I was thinking the other day, that yes, Mel can tell you, Mel and I were both writers before we became fundraisers. Writing skills are very, very important in fundraising. But today, my goodness, we have AI. And the ChatGPT and others, what they come up with is not bad. Does need editing. It's very American in the spelling and so on. But I'm a strong proponent of hiring for a period, 6 months, 9 months, a year or something, someone who can afford to either work entirely free or for an absolutely nominal stipend, even if they have other forms. I had somebody once joined by a business. She had no South African experience. She had a bit of just volunteer, had a bit of fundraising experience. Husband got transferred. His company sent him to South Africa on a 5-year contract. She couldn't get a work permit. I don't think she desperately needed or wanted one because they were lucky enough that he was going to be paid, continue being paid in pounds. And her heart was very much in the nonprofit sector, and she'd never been to South Africa, and we saw the level of poverty just driving from the airport. She looked around, she found me literally by Googling, and she said, I just want to do something. It has to be voluntary. And I talked to her. She hadn't done, she'd never worked as sort of as a corporate trust type of fundraiser, but that's where she thought ultimately when she went back to the UK, she might like to be. So the bottom line is she joined my team on a part-time basis because she had 2 small children, and she sorry, I've got somebody in the waiting room. There we go. She learned so much, and of course, and she stayed for the whole time her husband was there working with some organizations, grew a lovely relationship. And the bottom line is when she went back to the UK, she walked into a top job based on the very glowing reference I was able to give her and the level of experience she gained. So, but my point is thinking more of local people. Don't negate the thought of finding somebody who's interested in doing this work and gaining experience. And if they're able to afford to, I know an organization where somebody is working weekends and I think 2 evenings waitressing, and 2 days a week she is working from home learning fundraising. So I think we just need to think more creatively. So yeah, guys, we can't. The answer isn't that you give the fundraiser a different way of being paid, like a pocket of potatoes every week or something. That's wrong. But as I said, I'm trying to stay with our questions. Somebody asked the salary range. Catherine will be with you in a moment. Somebody asked the salary range. Now we're talking salaries, not commissions or anything. The short answer is I don't really know. I'm often asked salary ranges. Mel, I'd love your input on this or anybody else, but my instinct or what I normally tell people is, firstly, the salary a fundraiser receives must be in line with the salary bands within the organization. So it's not really about small, medium, or large organizations. I have met fundraisers in smaller towns, rural areas, who don't earn much, but then neither does even the CEO running the organization. So it starts within the salary band of an organization. Person A might be earning 7,000 Rand a month more than person B in another organization, but that's just it's the salary bands of the organization. And then we also get different, like big cities pay more than smaller places. Can anyone add to any value to that? Because it shouldn't just be about me. Salaries, Mel? Anyone?
Yeah, look, I can offer a solution to
Please.
wanting to know. Connect Network, based here in Cape Town, is a network of 116 Christian-based NPOs, but they do open their doors to anyone in need. And they have worked with, who are the fancy salary, is it Avril Ryder? But yeah, they've worked with Avril Ryder, and there is a salary benchmarking tool that they have developed.
Thanks.
It costs, I don't want to lie, it's under 3,000 Rand to access it, which is obviously a lot cheaper than what you would be charged by a corporate company. Celeste Dickinson's on the line. She knows a little bit about the various companies that do the salary benchmarking. But that's definitely an option. And Connect Network are really offering it at such a reasonable rate. If anybody does want to connect with them, it's called Connect Network. Grace and Cormore is their CEO. And that would be one way to do it. You know, I put a comment in the chat. It's very much around the level of experience of the fundraiser and the capacity of the NPO to pay. You know, I know of some amazing fundraisers who get paid what I consider not the greatest salary in the world, but they love what they do. They're amazing at what they do. And that is all the organization can afford to pay them. And that's what they get paid.
Thank you, Mel. Lizzie, did you have your hand up? I see you've also put a comment in, which I love. I'm going to read your comment, but come in if you want to. We've learned that you need a fundraising team, not just one person. I know I hear you say that often, Mel, so thanks for that. Do you want to add anything? That's absolutely. Yeah, Lizzie, please jump in.
I'm not going to put my camera on.
No, please,
but,
up to you. That can affect one's connection too, so there's no obligation to have your camera on.
So I'm the finance manager, so I'm not the fundraising, although we as organization, we're all taking on the role of fundraiser at the moment. So everyone from program coordinator to my finance assistant, who's also in this meeting, to our CEO, we're all working as a team towards working together on funding applications. For us, we still didn't really work to put all the responsibility on one person. So for us, we see it really has to be a team effort.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. I know Mel touched on that right in the beginning. It isn't about one person. It should be about everyone. I was consulting to a whole board meeting happened, and they added a couple of hours on, and they asked me to do a talk on the fundraising related roles and responsibilities of board members. And it was fascinating. I seem to end up doing this about once a year or so. And we'd arranged 2 hours because a lot of busy people. What we did is I was on Zoom and they were all in an in-person board meeting. And basically, what we came away with, all the biggest, I said, you know, if you take one thing away from this, please remember that as board members, your job is not to write funding proposals. It is to open doors. So important. One of my current voluntary involvements is advising and mentoring some volunteers in an organization. And the only reason I agreed to do this, because it's something I'm, you know, like I'm a consultant, I need to earn as well. But obviously, like Mel, I also do a lot of free work. And the only reason I agreed to take this on was because it's mentoring a group of a little group of people who have volunteered to be fundraisers, but because the board all undertook to open doors. So it's a very, very topical for me. I'm just going from the top down. I don't want us to miss any points in the chat. Is there any standard contract for independent proposal writers? This is put in by DM. I'm not sure exactly who DM is. So whoever DM is, please jump in if you want to add. But is there any standard contract? So my feeling is it sounds more like the wording of the contract versus anything around the payment if these proposals happen to be successful. So I'm not sure. That's why, please, whoever has posted this, please feel free to jump in. Mel, I know you're essentially a writer, as am I. To me, every person who knows about proposal writing, and if the question is focusing exclusively on the writing, I think it's time, and each writer would, you know, have their own charge based on time or guesstimated time. If you've done lots and lots of anything, you are certainly, I know how long something's going to take me, so I'm inclined to quote what a fee at the beginning of a contract and stick to it. But is there a standard contract? I have a contract that's 1.5 pages that lists what I have to do and critically what my client has to do. Because a lot of the time, things, the wheels fall off because I don't get what I need from my client. But Celeste, please unmute. And Mel, if you've got anything to add. So is there a standard contract for independent proposal writers? So and I'm not sure if that implies anything to do with payment or not. So Yeah, if it's up to me, it's a page and a half. It's not these 80 pages that the lawyers do. Please, Celeste.
Thanks. And I want to just, I guess, talk about from a HR perspective. So it's less about the job itself. It's more about what kind of contract. And I think I'm seeing this with a number of my clients, is that there's a bit of confusion as to, you know, the nature of the agreement that they want to make with people. So you've got to decide, first of all, is this person an employee? And then it's just a standard employment contract. But if they are invoicing you as a, you know, as a consultant, then it's a service level agreement. And I'm seeing it more and more where a lot of organizations are getting confused between and muddling. So people who are doing fundraising for them permanently, like almost, you know, full time, but and so they're giving them leave and everything like that, but they're also getting an invoice at the end of the month. And I'm saying, guys, be very, very careful and understand the nature of the type of contract that you're wanting to enter with the person. So are they independent contractors, in which, and that means that they give you an invoice. If you're being invoiced on a service level agreement, then you know, you're not an employee at all. But if the nature of the contract is that you're working part-time or full-time as an employee, you're being paid through payroll, tax, what, then there's a normal employment contract. So I don't know if that's really what was
thank you
being
so
offered.
much.
think it's
May I
important
just
to
ask
make
for
that-
others, what do you do?
Oh,
you-
I'm an HR consultant, and I work with a
Perfect.
number
Thank you,
of
thank you. I thought so,
NGOs.
but
Yeah, I've got about
so
8
that-
million of them.
that's
So a couple of
fantastic.
people
Yes.
here, I know.
Wonderful. Thanks for raising that. So you say you can't be a little bit pregnant. You can't be a consultant, external service provider, invoice, and then try and claim sick leave or whatever. Yeah, thanks for coming in on that. That's brilliant. Mel, were you going to add anything? Because I'm still going down the
No,
questions.
just to say, yeah, I have a basic service level agreement that's kind of evolved over time, you know, where a client has said, oh, can we add this clause or can we add this paragraph? But it is very much about, it's explicit. I'm not an employee. I do have KPIs. We do agree on what those can be. Otherwise, you don't have a roadmap for what you have to do. But I am certainly not an employee. And all contracts should have a get out of jail free card.
Absolutely.
And we make sure that they do. But
Break
is
clause,
the
I think they
standard
call
one-
it. Break clause. If either party wants to end it. Yeah, I've had that from the very first contract I ever entered into, because I had this strong feeling if I didn't want a client, because that's what our nonprofits are to us as external people, to be stuck with me because there's still 7 months to run on the contract or something. I've always said we need either party can just give notice. There's Philippa has asked, as a consultant, not an employee, what is the agreement with the MPO? Well, it's a contract. And in
Service
my
level
case, it's
agreement.
when I'm going to start. Is it a 3-month thing? Is it should be renewed annually? Is it ongoing until either party's had enough? What exactly are my duties? And then I put in exactly what my clients need to do, because I've had some nightmare situations where we've missed deadlines because I couldn't get stuff out of the client. So I've, out of irritation, added a very, a list of things that clients have to do. So I hope that helps you, Philippa. Mel, you're nodding your head. Do you want to come in? I'm just literally going down the. What about legacy? Oh, I love it. What about legacy fundraising? Marisa, is it Marisa? Are you talking about how crazy it is to have a commission around legacy fundraising, then you're waiting for people to die? Or do you want to expand on your point where you're just saying, what about legacy fundraising? Is it Marisa? Maritza?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Hi,
It's
Marisa.
Marisa Jurgens.
Marisa, thank you.
Yes,
Sounds not very
I'm on
good.
the board of Retina South Africa. Is the sound not good? Is it better now?
That's better now.
it better?
Oh, fantastic. So you're asking us from a board member level.
Yes, and
Brilliant,
I oversee the fundraising team at Retina South Africa.
Okay.
So at the moment we have an events fundraiser and we have a grants and aid fundraiser, and we are both our fundraisers are on service level agreements, but they do not earn commission on donations and grants and aid. The only commission is paid on the events person.
That's
But we are
clever.
planning to put in a bequests fundraiser soon, appoint a bequest fundraiser soon, and so I presume that it would
Well,
be
we
very unethical to pay a commission on bequests. I
well,
presume.
yes,
So
you don't
that's
want them
my
hiring a
question.
hitman or anything, do you? Yes, no, it's not only unethical. I can't see it working, because with bequests, yes, a bequest is the largest, or legacy, the largest amount of money generally that anybody ever gives, but people can also change their wills, so it's a minefield.
I think also if you decided to only pay out once the bequest comes in, what if they're no longer working for the organization at that point? So
Oh,
do you have to
yes.
go and hunt them down and tell them that there's money owing to them? I think it would be very difficult to
No,
manage.
it's crazy. Yeah, no, I cannot think of anything more complicated. So well done. Firstly, I must commend you that your two existing fundraisers are not on commission, and totally understandable that event person is, or even if it's an outsourced person, because that's okay. That's clear, it's manageable, it's transparent, that is fine. Mel, are you saying Judith Tenzong Spears? Are you saying, Mel, your point to Judith was that how much people earn is also depending on experience? Yeah, thank you.
These are legacy answers to questions.
Oh, I see. Isn't a standard contract? Yes. Gina, sorry, I'm still plowing through this. I signed a services. Gina saying service agreement. Okay, but every 12-24 months. Yeah. Okay, so we use Rob Oakley for salary benchmarking. Is that what you were saying? Brenda's saying they use Rob Oakley. Reasonable rates for NPOs. Oh, Celeste is also saying, oh, there you go. I hadn't heard of Rob Oakley. So you see, value of networking. So thank you for that. Great. So anybody got any other thoughts or ideas, questions? Even if your organization does pay commission, please don't, it's not illegal. So nobody's going to think badly of you. So if there's is there anything anybody wants to ask or share or give tips? I loved what you said earlier, Mel, about, I think it was in response to a question that whilst, we're mostly all against commission, that for really good success, there could be a bonus or something. Sorry, somebody has said, so why is it okay to earn commission for a fundraising event, but not for grants? Is this still raising money? That is, who is PF? Philippa, it's Philippa. Okay, let's go back to that, and please, anybody else jump in if you can help. So Philippa, I think it's Philippa, is saying, why is it okay to earn commission for an event, but not for grants? It's still raising money. It's a very, very good question to challenge us on this. In many cases, when I was talking about events, I did preface that in many cases, but not exclusively, but in many cases, given the incredible amount of work that events are, organizations are inclined to outsource them. They don't all, but they often outsource to event organizers. And by definition, I'm afraid they're quite expensive, because it could be the same event organizer. Professional event organizers also work for companies. Their charges can be quite hefty. Obviously, I've certainly, every time I've used one of those, I've negotiated a better rate. But it's not as it's and please help me here, Mel or Merle, or anyone who'd like to come in on this, because it essentially sort of has literally the beginning, when the planning and all the hard work starts, it culminates in the actual event, and there's a little bit of wrapping up, and then it is over. And probably for that reason only, and also the donors, for want of a better word, the people who buy tickets, the people who buy little raffle tickets, purchase something on an auction, they are not giving money. They're attending an event because that's the attraction. Remember, this event, this is where we often go wrong. When we organize events, we think because, oh shame, we're charity and we're going to do what I call rather rudely another chicken dinner, or quite frankly, another golf day. we come up with these event ideas and we think because, oh, shame, we're a non-profit, people are going to flock to support us. We're going to have no trouble selling our tickets, and we neglect to have a very, very powerful attraction, draw card. Otherwise, events are just a huge amount of money. A huge amount of time to often make not that much money. So it's become, and thank you for challenging us on this, Philippa. It's sort of found its way into the sector that not even people buying tickets or people there on the night mind. I've never heard of an attendee at an event having a problem that Susan or John or Mary's company or them themselves, or they cleverly put a volunteer group together to organize the event, would have a problem with it. It's not like we've got a donation of 2 million rand from Anglo American and we have a contract that clearly says no one can cream anything off. It's sometimes, and it's good to be challenged on these kind of things, but I have absolutely no issue with an event organizer earning, because the amount of work. I have literally, only times that I have worked literally through the night, once was to get a very huge proposal in, which thank goodness was granted from the UK lottery for a South African organization, which was literally £500,000, and I had to work through the night to meet the deadline. And I've worked through the night to do with events. They're a nightmare. So I don't know. Am I waffling, Mel? Do you want to come in and save me?
Jill, something that we spoke about, and then it kind of clicked in my brain, is the fact that it works around sponsorship.
Yes.
You don't get a Section 18A for any of it. The income is actually not really considered a donation to the greater extent. And I think that gives you a little bit of flexibility in terms of being able to do the commission-based fundraising thing.
And I can, thank you, Mel. Yes, true. I would also challenge that there are not hundreds and hundreds of event organizing companies chomping at the bit saying, hi, NPOs, let us do your events for you for a commission, because they are insanely hard work. I remember being on some mailing list, a very innovative entrepreneurial woman who had event organizing experience in the corporate world and had been approached and had quite successfully done a few events for nonprofits. As part of her marketing, she did not have a nonprofit background. She did some, this is long ago, but she did some online searching, and she identified some large nonprofits, or maybe she just went to some she knew of. But anyway, I happened to be the person whom she emailed representing a certain organization, and she offered, and her thing was gala opening nights of plays. So that's where she restricted what she did, and she did it very well. And she was doing a bit of a sales thing. I hadn't met her. It was just an email, and I did follow her up. I did follow up on that, but she basically was saying, and I forget what the percentage she was charging, but have a lot of experience, a lot of successful, and every event she had done, everything she was saying was entirely true. And she had done a lot of, filled a lot of gala nights and so on. And unfortunately for her, she used one word in her sales spiel, as it were. And she said, we can guarantee to, fill the venue. And depending if you wanted do you want a sort of cocktail bash or whatever. And I made a time to talk to her immediately on receiving this, and I challenged her on this word guarantee, and to fill the room, because that's the hardest thing around events. You don't even quite rank. Sponsorship is wonderful, but you don't actually need it around events. If you know you're going to sell all your tickets, then sponsorship just becomes a great bonus. And when I pushed her on it, because I thought, if this is real, then I'm definitely going to introduce her to this, to suggest this to the organization. And I'm afraid the whole thing collapsed on the fact she couldn't actually contractually agree to fill the room. So sorry, I don't want to be waffling, but yeah, no, I must say I don't have a problem with the event thing. So there's a nice long one. Catherine, going back to the matter of small NPOs who can't afford a fundraiser, we've touched a few times. I'm trying to, on getting more than one person from the organization involved in fundraising, like Help to Read, yeah. But the one thing that I've learned is to ask teammates what other skills and interests they have, and would they be interested in using these non-job skills? In other words, if I'm reading this correctly, skills that aren't part of their specific role. For example, we have wanted someone to do, I'm trying to read this, sorry. I can't read, some stupid thing, icon is jumping up in the fundraising videos. Oh, I see. For us, but we can't afford professional videos. 2 employees surprised me with having done a video. Oh, that's wonderful, including translation captions. When a client spoke at Missy Closer on the video, it was great. And although not perfect, all we needed now is to get some editing done. Oh, that's wonderful. You can ask a high school nephew that. That's exactly the age. I love that. Yeah, thank you. It's you know what you're talking about here is I always counsel, and you'll find it in my books or training, whatever, or people contact me and they say, oh, you know, we're struggling with fundraising, or I even get, and I'm sure you do, Mel, I even get the CEO or the senior person make an appointment. I can set up a consulting session for me with their fundraising person, not even the fundraising person asking for it. The boss says, you are going to have a consulting session. Jill's going to have to tell you how we can raise more money. And I always start off, whoever I'm talking to, I start off by saying, consider the fund spending before the fundraising. And we seem to just, you know, whether it's a managerial person, whether it's a staff member, a volunteer, whoever, seem to be given this budget, appears from the finance department, it's rubber stamped by the board, and that's it. That's what the fundraiser or the fundraising department has to raise. And we forget that a lot of the expenses that we've just put in the budget, and with somebody's done the homework, they know exactly what these things, whatever it might be, from stationery to groceries to, in this case, video, whatever. And we just, poor fundraiser, just loaded with these expenses. But if we could put more effort and energy, and this is a huge place where I feel the board has to bring their part through their contacts. If we can get more of a donation in kind, remember that companies, big or small, could be somebody working out of their mother's garage, will far more readily give free their services or products. And although it's not my area of expertise, but I know that there's in some respects, there are benefits they can get from SARS for doing this, rather than just load everything onto the poor fundraiser who's imploding. So anything that can be done free. And yes, other ways to involve staff. Yes, yes, yes. All ideas welcome. What are some examples of KPIs? Mel, if this is the KPIs, I think this is for you, key performance indicators in a contract. It's probably about money raised or people spoken to. Do you want to take this one?
Sure, we never do money raised.
I'm just getting some water.
Yeah. And unlike death and taxes, there are no guarantees. So our KPIs tend to be around numbers of proposals sent out, meetings secured with prospective donors, those sorts of metrics, because as I say, I'm seeing very clearly it's taking 2 years to get money. So promising to get money is setting yourself and the organization up for huge disappointment. So our KPIs tend to be around the number of proposals put out a month. Maybe we have a commitment to provide a newsletter or some sort of social media support or something like that. So that might be number of posts, which platforms, that type of thing.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for that. I mean, you are more hands-on involved in actual client fundraising than I am, so I wanted you to answer that. Thank you. Yes, you know, I've had a number of meetings. Well, it kind of goes like this. I would get an email from someone. It could be a CEO, it could be an outgoing fundraiser, it could be somebody saying we're considering, or we're looking, or we're planning to outsource our corporate trust type of fundraising. And you know, could you basically give us a quote? So and I'm sure this is being asked of a number of other people. So I would submit my quote and all that, maybe a few meetings, etc. Then I might be, you know, part of a short list or something. But the next step is I would need to meet with either the entire board sometimes, or certainly a few senior people. And this is part of the final decision as to who to hire to do this. And inevitably, I would get very well-meaning but entirely naive question along the lines of, how much are you going to raise by when? Now, remember, I would technically be there, as would some other people, pitching for the contract, to which I would always reply, I have absolutely no idea. And this would floor them. And they go, well, you know, you've got a lot of success. We've checked out your past, you know, your references and all that. I said, but here's the point. I would expand and I'd say, I would have to get involved and I would have to find out if there was any damage done that my team and I might have to fix. I didn't quote the client, but I said, here's an example, happened to me, you know, within the previous year. I said, I had very, very good personal contacts with the person who was then heading up the CSI department, Anglo-American. And I felt that one of the projects was a perfect fit. And I had a good enough relationship to be able to get a meeting, because meetings with donors, as you know, are not very easy, not to ask for money, but to discuss before, you know, finally submitting the form, to be told that they will never fund this organization again, ever, because they are still waiting for a report from 3 years ago. Now, that's why I talk about, you know, I have no idea when I get involved what sort of damage I might have to, what damage had been done, reputational damage, etc. So we don't know. That's why I like Mel. How much to be raised? Never. One of the most recent contracts I undertook was actually to manage a capital campaign. And when I got this contract, it had something about Papillon. The Papillon team will raise X million. And I said, I'm sorry, if you don't add the word endeavor to, I'm walking away. And of course, they stuck it in. I mean, came back in 10 minutes with the word endeavor to raise was put in, but I would never have a certain amount as a KPI. So thank you for that. A question I thought is Deborah's asking, is 10% the average commission paid to fundraisers, or not for events? I always undercharge, I feel. Well, it's a difficult one, because unfortunately, if it were me and I had anything to do with it, I would outlaw the concept of commission, and then the problem would go away. But any charge that anyone renders on anything, whether it's a loaf of bread or a pizza or whatever, is always based on what the market will bear. So I've never done the exercise to ask lots of different organizations, lots of different commission earning fundraisers what they earn. But what I can tell you from some informally that I've talked to, and please weigh in anybody if you can, I often find either 10% plus expenses paid by the organization, or either 15 or even 20% if the fundraiser bears their own costs. And these costs could be things like flying and accommodation and these quite expensive things that are added on to the costs of a fundraiser's life. So yeah, it's not, you know, I was once asked how much commission should a fundraiser earn, and I said, well, you know, I'm a vegetarian, and it'd be actually like asking me if I prefer pork or beef. It's a question I can't really even weigh in on. But don't be entirely guided by me. Is there anyone else who wants to give some advice on, you know, what's the right sort of commission to pay? What's the average? Is 10% the average? There is one example which I think I will share, because we've got 15 minutes left. When I was, what was I? I was the vice president of the INSAFE, the Institute of Fundraising. And by the way, Southern Africa Institute of Fundraising doesn't allow members to take commission. That's it, because they're influenced by such professional bodies globally. But I did come up, and I spent a lot of time doing a lot of research, and I came up with I just created the term a commission with a ceiling, so that members of the Institute could still benefit from all the networking and learning. And at those days, the Institute of Fundraising was very, very active. And I came up with this concept of a commission with a ceiling, and that was approved. And then we said to members at the time that they could do this. So that would be something like, what would the salary be if the organization could afford the salary? And I'm going to use round figures now. This isn't the figures at the time because now I'm just doing it in my head and mental arithmetic's not my strength. But let's pretend that it might be, and seriously round figures now, say 10,000 Rand a month salary if the small organization could afford it, and basing that on for 12 months on 1.2 million. And as the person went along and started to raise money, they would get their 10%. But let's say it went well and the 1.2 million had been achieved by September, then the fundraiser would keep working but not earn any more for the rest of the year. If you guys are getting where I'm going with this. And I must say that was the only concept that was ever accepted, and a few of those who did go along with it and thereby their fundraisers could become members of the Institute found that after just a year of being there and working in that way, it would kick in and they'd establish the contacts and then the fundraising would continue. But I do want to get to our questions in our chat. There's one more. Philippa saying, I'm thinking I need to include in my contract going forward. Okay, that's interesting. Mel, you're saying you don't know about commission. Yes, I heard as high as 40%. Yeah, that's quite scary. You know, long ago, and I'm old enough to remember long ago, the NPO Act replaced a dreadful old tainted piece of legislation called the Fundraising Act. And part of that revolting act was that in order for fundraisers back in the apartheid time to be registered, in other words, it was called getting a fundraising number, none other than the security police, you know, like the apartheid government's Gestapo, had to check that the newly the organization trying to be registered wasn't actually a front for the struggle, and a front in a way pretending an organization was going to do good work, could it actually a way of fundraising, and that did happen. I know, believe me, I was in a black sash. I can tell you some stories, but that was replaced, and it had to be. Now, unfortunately, that act did put a cap of 40% of commission, which I think is appalling. But so back in the day, I forget when the act was the new act came in around 99, 2000, I think, I can't quite remember. But so there is this historical thing that sadly was an outrageous 40% was allowed. Examples of KPIs we've covered. Thanks, Celeste. Keep it simple. Measurable, absolutely. Thanks, Philippa's finding it valuable. Thank you very much. That's great. We've only got about 10 minutes left. Anybody want to add anything? Is there anything we haven't covered? I'm sorry that we haven't found you a magic answer of how commission-based fundraising can work, but I felt if we're going to have these monthly discussions and networking and sharing of ideas and challenging ideas, we couldn't not cover this difficult topic. And please, I do, and I know I haven't even planned any of this with Melanie, other than just asking her to come in and help to getting the discussions going initially. It is not illegal to pay commission. Donors do not like it, but it's not currently illegal unless you're getting, unless the amounts are unreasonable, because somebody's because the contract hasn't capped the commission. That's the point. This example I explained about the woman who got her commission from, eventually the labor lawyer got her commission from a lottery payment, officially paid from the organization's own resources. All that had gone wrong is they haven't capped it. So we're not saying under no circumstances, should anybody pay commission. We're saying, please, can you think of creative, innovative ways to avoid it? Because you never want to lie to a donor or potential donor. If you are asked, does the fundraiser take a commission? You can't say no if it's yes. So it's just substantially better if it can be avoided. That's really the point. So anybody got any thoughts or questions or challenges or ideas or anything you'd like to share? Anyone? Yes, Irene, please do.
I must say, we at NID, we're very blessed with a very effective fundraising team. And I know it is a responsibility, and I this year 144 years old. So it's a responsibility to get the history going strongly further. But when I look at it brings me back again that you have also mentioned, Jill, that you can have a very effective fundraising team, good focusing, strong projects, but it brings back the network of the board. They must open the doors. That is the secret. You can have everything in place, but the networking from the board it's much needed. So you
No,
have to decide.
you are absolutely right. I know it's not I know it's a little off the topic, but again, just to underpin my my point, where we seem to forget, we seem to have this and as I said, I keep raising it because I'm a bit back and forth between South Africa and the UK, and I see how it's perfectly normal to have somebody who has one day a week or a 10-hour week or whatever, you know, small amount, and the people who would work these very short hours in the UK, believe me, they work extremely hard. But we seem to have this obsession that we need to give people full-time jobs. But I thought of something else, and I know they don't mind me mentioning them because I go around saying they're the poster child, in my opinion, of getting income generating right. NOAH, Enabled Old Age Homes. Mel, I know you know them well, you've consulted to them, and they care for, they do what they say, neighborhood old age homes. They care for older people, social pensioners. And I had a discussion with them a long time ago, gosh, 15 years ago, and challenged them on the fact that at that stage, they weren't earning any money. And they quite rightly said to me at the time, even the CEO at the time isn't even there anymore, but long time ago, they said, oh, but you know, we're so busy, we just can't add some sort of income generating onto any of our existing staff. But nevertheless, they did in a very small way start to self-generate some money. They just started selling secondhand goods. And then they hired a lovely lady who we all know well, Jane Mills, just 1 day a week. Her job was 1 day a week. She was working for me, and I effectively let her off 1 day a week to go and work for their base there and just to work at growing their income generating. And then it became 2 days, it became 3 days, and eventually Jane was full-time. And today NOAH is close to 50%, their goal of nearly 50% of their annual income being self-generated. Why I'm raising that, and the topic here isn't income generation, but sometimes one can start something small and it can evolve. So please don't negate the potential of having somebody who can assist in whatever it may be, a new area of fundraising, your organization can only afford to buy a small amount of their time, whether they are literally a salaried staff member on 1 day or 2 days a week or something, or you hire, you know, you buy in a small amount of their time, and however it's done. So I just want to leave that thought, because I find, and there's even, you know, there's even a term now called micro volunteering, and it is really becoming a global thing. I chair an organization in the UK where we have someone doing all the bookkeeping, but up to the level in the UK, and I know there's quite a few in South Africa, and this is not my area of strength, but up to a certain amount of income, one doesn't need an audit unless it is specifically requested. And this lady has been the volunteer handling the bookkeeping and preparing, right up to preparing accounts, although they're not audited, for something like, I set up in 2010, and it's still flourishing. And we've had this micro volunteer, same lady has done it ever since, you know, for all these years, and she probably spends 15, maybe 20 hours a year, literally a year. But it is invaluable, and I'd hate to know what it would cost us if we were doing that. So yes, don't negate it. It's not all about full-time. That's really my point. Buy in valuable skills, even if it's less of them, is probably my best leave behind tip. Any last questions, thoughts, ideas? Otherwise, we're going to end off. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Mel. Thanks, Irene. Thanks for the input. Thanks for challenging us. Thanks for your questions.
Thank you
The
for
recording
hosting.
will be on our website. I hope this has helped. There isn't a magic answer. It is tough. It is an ongoing challenge, but I just thought we can't not look at it. So good luck with everything you're doing, everybody, and thank you for what you're doing, because wow, can you imagine our country without the non-profit sector? I hate to think. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mel.